Tetzayin Besivan, July 5th, the Dirshu Daf Yomi Behalacha. We're going to begin at the end of Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Bet, all the way at the end, Siman Kuf Lametet Seif Dalet, and we're going to primarily be doing Daf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph. That will be our Amud today. Starting from the bottom of Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Bet, Seif Dalet, Kol HaKorin Mevarchin Lefaneha Ul Ahareha. Whoever is called to the Torah has to make a bracha before and a bracha after. Upoteach hasefer kodem sheyivarech vero'eh pasuk shetzarich le'atchil bo ve'achar kach yivarech. What do you do? What does the Oleh do when he gets up to the Sefer Torah? The Sefer Torah is opened before he makes the bracha. He sees the pasuk. He sees the pasuk that they're going to start from, and afterwards he makes the bracha. Ulachar shekara golel umevarech. After the aliyah, the Sefer Torah is wrapped, is closed, and then he makes the bracha after of Asher Natan Lanu et Torato Torat Emet. Haga ubesha'a shemevarech bracha rishona yahafoch panav el hatzad. Shelo yehen nir'eh kemevarech min haTorah. When making the bracha before the aliyah, he needs to turn his face to the side. We're going to explain the Mishnah Brura exactly what's going on in this halacha. However, the Rama writes at the time when he makes the bracha, he needs to turn his face to the side. Shelo yehen nir'eh kemevarech min haTorah. So it doesn't appear like he's reading the bracha out of the Torah. He should turn his face to the left side. Let's go in the Mishnah Brura. Mishnah Brura, Saif Dalet, Saif Katan Yu Dalet. Kol HaKorin. Af demidina lo haya tzarich levarer ki im harishon bracha rishona ve'aharon bracha aharona. Even though that min hadin, the only person that needs the only brachot of the Torah that we need is the first one who is called up and the last one who is called up. The first one who is called up, he makes a bracha before, and the last one, the last Oleh that's called up, he makes a bracha after. Once again, Avdi midina lo haya tzarich levarer ki im harishon bracha rishona והאחרון ברכה אחרונה, והאמצעים יוצאים בברכתן. All those who are called up in between the first person and the last person are yotze with those berachot. They fulfill their obligation with those berachot. There's no need for them to make a bracha. ואף על פי כן, תקינו רבנן משום הנכנסין והיוצאים באמצע הקריאה, שלא ישמעו ברכת הפותח והחותם ויאמרו שקוראים בתורה בלי ברכה. שכל אחד ואחד מהעולים יברך בתחילה בסוף כמו שנהוג hayom. However, the Chachamim came and they instituted that every single Oleh has to make a bracha before the Kriyah and after the Kriyah. Because what's going to happen if only the first Oleh makes a bracha before and the last Oleh makes a bracha after, and everybody in between does not make any bracha before or after? People that are walking in between the aliyot are going to think that you are not supposed to make a bracha before or after getting aliyah la Torah. Shelo yishme'u birkat hapoter v'achotem ve'yomu shekorin b'Torah bli bracha. They are going to come to the conclusion. They are going to draw a conclusion that we read the Torah without a bracha. Therefore, for this reason, each and every single Oleh has to make a bracha before and a bracha after. Seif katan tedvav mevarchin lefaneha ul ahareha hine leachareha shehi birkat asher natan, according to the Sfaradim, asher natan lanu et torato torat emet lekule alma derabanan. According to all opinions, it is only derabanan. Ulefaneha shehi birkat asher bahad. The bracha that said before the aliyah, that the Oleh, that the person who goes up, who's called up, says before the aliyah, that bracha is asher bahad. Yesh de'od ben poskim imhi debal Torah derabanan. There are some opinions who hold that the bracha that said before the bracha v'asher bahad is deoraita, is minat Torah, is biblically commanded, and there are some that holds that it's only rabbinically commanded. V'hani mili keshelo berach adayin birkat Torah. Now this machloket, this difference of opinion, whether the bracha before the aliyah is deoraita or derabanan, that's only if the ole did not yet say birkat Torah. Aval im berach kevar birkat Torah lekule alma hi derabanan. If the ole already said birkat Torah, according to all opinions, it's only rabbinically instituted that he has to make a bracha before. שנתקנה משום כבוד הציבור כמו שכתוב סעיף ח'. It was only enacted because of the kavod of the tzibur, as will be explained in סעיף ח'. אם טעה בברכת התורה ופתח אשר נתן לנו במקום אשר בחר. A person got an aliyah, a person is called up to the Torah, and he made a mistake. He began to say the bracha v'asher natan lanu et torato torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu, instead of saying the bracha v'asher bahad. Im niskar kodem she'amar Hashem me'achatima dehainu noten Torah yatchil me'asher bahad banu. If he realized his mistake before he said Hashem's name at the conclusion of the bracha, at the conclusion of the bracha, we say Baruch Ata Hashem noten Torah. If he realized his mistake before he said Hashem's name in the conclusion of the bracha, yatchil me'asher baharbanu. He just continues, he right away inserts asher baharbanu mikolam. V'im kevar amar Baruch Ata Hashem. But if he already said Baruch Ata Hashem, including Hashem's name at the conclusion of the blessing, Av she'adayin lo amar noten Torah, even if he did not yet conclude with the last two words noten Torah, yesayem ota beracha. He should conclude that beracha, ul'achar kriya yomar asher baharbanu. After the kriya, he says the bracha asher baharbanu, meaning if a person accidentally switched the first bracha, instead of saying asher baharbanu, he said asher natalanu et torato torat emet. Then, after the kriya, he goes back and he says Asher Baharbanu. Od katav sham, im amar bracha harishona, kara'ui, uva beracha shniyata v'itchil Asher Baharbanu. Let's say you have a case that he said the first bracha, the first bracha was said correctly. The bracha before the aliyah Asher Baharbanu, that's the bracha he said, and that is correct. However, after the aliyah, instead of making the bracha asher natalanu et torato torat emet, instead he said a bracha v'asher baharbanu. Im niskar, he repeated the bracha that he said before the aliyah. Im niskar terem omro baruch ata Hashem noten Torah. If he remembered, if he realized his mistake before he concluded the blessing baruch ata Hashem noten Torah, yatchil me'asher natan lanu. Wherever he is, he begins saying asher natan lanu et torato torat emet. Aval im lo niskar ad le'achar shamar baruch ata Hashem noten Torah. But if he only remembered after he concluded the blessing, once again he said the blessing of Asher Baharbanu again after the kriya, and he concluded the blessing. Yatchil odapa mitchilat abracha. Then he has to go all the way to the beginning of the bracha. Baruch ata Hashem Elokenu melech haolam asher natan lanu et torato torat emet. V'im niskar le'achar Baruch ata Hashem kodem noten Torah. But let's say he realizes his mistake after he said he's in the conclusion of the bracha. He realizes his mistake after Hashem and kodem noten Torah. Yomar miryad Elokenu melech haolam asher natan lanu. In that case, he right away says Asher Natan Lanu. He just continues Baruch Ata Hashem instead of concluding Noten Torah. If he realized his mistake at that point after Hashem's name, right away he segues into Elokenu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu et Torato Torat Emet. Vero'eh pasuk kedei sheyada al mahu mevarech. Why does he have to see the pasuk before he begins the bracha? In order that he knows, what am I making a bracha on? What is it? What is it I'm making a bracha on? We show him the pasuk, then he can make the bracha. Ve'achal kach yevarech מרן השולחן ערוך writes, ואחר כך יברך, רוצה לומר שאין צריך לגלול הספר תורה בשעת ברכתו, רוצה לומר. What's מרן השולחן ערוך trying to say here? שאין צריך לגלול הספר תורה בשעת ברכתו. At the time of him saying, when he says the bracha before the reading, he's called up to the Torah. He is saying the bracha before the reading. The Torah does not have to be wrapped, it doesn't have to be closed. V'leika lemecha shema yomru berachot ketuvot b'Torah v'hu mevarech min hasefer. We don't need to be concerned that perhaps people will say that the brachot are written in the Sefer Torah, and he's saying the bracha from the Sefer Torah. Everybody knows there's no brachot. The brachot are not written in the Sefer Torah. Specifically, in the first bracha, they weren't concerned for this. Because of tirha de tzibura. If we close the Sefer Torah, then he makes the bracha, then we reopen the Sefer Torah. There is tirha de tzibura. This is a bother for the kahal to wait this out. Aval bi bracha harona deleka ta'am zeh. But by the second bracha, where we don't have this concern, v'gam de belav hachi tzarich liglola Sefer Torah ben gavra legavra. And in any case, the Sefer Torah has to be wrapped between each person. Bevadai adif yoter sheyiglol kodem haberacha. While before the Sefer Torah is read, while it's by the first beracha, we are not makpid for the Torah to be closed at the time of the beracha. By after the beracha, we wait for the Torah to be closed before he begins his beracha. Why? The belav hachi tzarich liglol haSefer Torah ben gavra legavra. וזהו שמסיים המחבר לאחר שקרא גולל ומברך. That is why the mechaber concludes the halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, ולאחר שקרא גולל ומברך. After he reads, the Sefer Torah is wrapped, is closed, and then he makes the bracha. This is what the Ashkenazim do. What do the Sfaradim do? It's slightly different. אחר שסיים הקריאה בתורה, קודם שיתחיל העולה לתורה לברך, I'm reading in the halacha ברורה right now, קודם שיתחיל העולה לתורה לברך, צריך שיראה המקום שבו מתחיל לקרוא. He has to see from where the reading is going to begin. He has to be shown by the Baal Koreh. He has to be aware where they're starting from. ואחר כך מברך ברכת אשר בחר בנו. Once he's been shown the pasuk where they're beginning the aliyah, where they're going to read from the Torah for his aliyah, then he can begin the bracha באשר בחר בנו. ומנהג הספרדים ועדות המזרח על פי דברי רבנו הארי ז"ל, שהעולה מכסה הכתב של הספר תורה במטפחת ספר התורה ואחר כך מברך. The minhag of the Sfaradim is that we take a type of cloth, a type of covering. We don't close the Sefer Torah. We cover the writing, and then he says the bracha before the Kriya v'asher b'char banu. אחר שסיים הקריאה בתורה, יזכור העולה לתורה את ספר התורה ויברך ברכה אחרונה, כשספר התורה סגור. After the Kriya, the Sefer Torah is closed, and then the after blessing, the bracha v'asher natan lanu et torato torat emet, is said when the Sefer Torah is closed. However, uminhag הספרדים ועדות המזרח שלא לסגור את ספר תורה. The minhag of the Sfaradim and the Edot HaMizrach after the Kriyat HaTorah is not to close the Sefer Torah. Ela mechasim haketav b'mitpachat Sefer Torah. We cover the Sefer Torah with a cloth, with a covering. V'nish'ar ketav Sefer HaTorah mechuseh ad sheyaleh ha'oleh shelacharav. And the Sefer Torah remains covered with the covering that we put on it until the next Oleh comes up. והאשכנזים נהגו לסגור את ספר התורה ונשאר הספר תורה סגור עד שיעלה העולה שלאחריו. The Ashkenazim are noheg Their custom is to actually close the Sefer Torah, to wrap the Sefer Torah until the next person goes up. ולמנהגם אין צריך גם לסגור את הספר תורה וגם לכסותו. ורק אחר שעלה השביעי לתורה נוהגים גם לסגור את הספר תורה וגם לכסותו בשעה שאומרים חצי קדיש. According to the Ashkenazim, you do not need to close the Sefer Torah and to cover it. It's enough to close it, and only by the Kaddish, after the Shevi'i, after the 7th Aliyah, the minhag is to close the Sefer Torah and to cover it when Hatzi Kaddish is being said. V'chen, אם מפסיקים בין עלייה לעלייה כדי להשאיר לכבוד חתן או כדי לעשות מי שברח לעולה, נוהגים גם לסגור הספר תורה וגם לכסותו. Also, when there's an interruption between each aliyah, for example, there is singing for a hatan, or they're making a mishaberach for the oleh, then the minhag is to both close it and cover it. ויש שנהגו תמיד לסגור הספר תורה וגם לכסותו, ובספרי תורה של הספרדים, שיש להם תיק, they literally, the ספר תורה of the ספרדים have a תיק, they have a case, נוהגים רק לכסות הכתב בין עולה לעולה, ורק אחר שעלה השביעי ואומרים חצי קדיש, נוהגים לסגור את הספר תורה. According to the Sfaradim, the minhag that we use sifrei Torah that have a case, the minhag is just to cover the writing, and only after the 7th aliyah where there is kaddish is the minhag to both close is the minhag to close the Sefer Torah. But otherwise, the minhag of the Sfaradim between aliyot is just to cover the Sefer Torah and not to close the Sefer Torah. Yahapoch panav. We said in the Shulchan Aruch, at the time when the oleh is saying the first bracha, he should turn his face away. Svirale. Dekevan debaze lekatir hadetzibura. Tov lahosh gam bibracha rishona lahashash shelo yomru brachot ketuvot batorah. Why does the oleh turn his face away? That people should not say that the brachot are written in the Torah. Uchmo shekatavnu ka'en ze b'seif katan yud zayin. Semolo. Dehu yemin HaKadosh Baruch Hu ha'omen lenegdo v'chadiskal leil siman kuf chaf gimel. Why does he turn to his left? Because this is the right of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is opposite the person. The oleh's left is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's right. Mihu. Yesh aharonim shekatvu dafichad panav eno nachon. There are haronim that wrote that an oleh turning his face away is incorrect. It's not proper. Demareh atzmo ki'ilu eno mevarech al ma sheikra rak al midei aharina. Because it appears that he's not making a bracha on what's being read, rather he's making a bracha on something else. Deha misalek panav mimenu. For you see him turning his face away from it. Ve'yoter tov leha'atzim enav shelo leistakel b'sefer Torah bishat beracha. What's better and more advisable is not for a person to turn his face away, but rather just for a person to close his eyes. Va'ayen beve'ur halacha. Va'ayen beve'ur halacha. Yesh nohagin lishhot ulishtachavot be'et amirat habracha mishum kevod haTorah. There are those that have the minhag to both bend and bow when they make the bracha, when they're up at the Torah mishum kevod haTorah. V'katav ha'Eliyah Rabbah de'al kol panim lo yishhe gam besof haberacha. Even if a person is going to bend and bow, at the very least, however, a person should not bend when he concludes the bracha. Because at that point it already appears that a person is adding to the bowings that the Chachamim instituted. A person may not add to the bowings that the Chachamim instituted. Let's continue. Nahagu lechasot, Maran HaShulchan Aruch in Seif Hey, Nahagu lechasot haketav besudar ben gavra legavra. The minhag, Maran HaShulchan Aruch writes what we read earlier. The minhag is to cover the ketav. According to the Sfaradim, we don't necessarily close the Sefer Torah in between aliyot. The minhag is just to cover the writing with a sudar, with a cloth, with a cover between each aliyah. ובמדינות אלו נהגו שיהיה מגוללת בין גברא לגברא וכן עיקר. However, the Rama writes according to the Ashkenazim that no, the Sefer Torah should be literally rolled up, it should be closed. נהגו לחסות, in the Mishnah ברורה סעיף קטן כ' אף על פי שמן הדין צריכה להיות מגוללת, even though by the letter of the law the Torah should be wrapped, כמו שכתוב סעיף ד' מכל מקום נהגו להיות פתוחה. The minhag is that it remains open. ובמקום גלילה מכסים בסודר קודם ברכה אחרונה. It remains open and the ketav, the writing, is covered. נהגו שיהיה מגוללת. But according to the Rama, it's not enough for it to be covered. נהגו שיהיה מגוללת. ולא סגי בכיסוי בעלמא, it's not enough to cover. וכתב התז לפי מנהג זה, according to this minhag, שוב אין צריך כיסוי. According to the minhag that we're rolling up the Sefer Torah in between aliyot, then it certainly doesn't need you don't need to cover it also. והכיסוי הטרחה יתרה, the kisui, the covering, is an extra burden, it's an extra chore. It's an extra. ורק בעת שאומרים קדיש אחר הקריאה שפיר יש לכסות. Only when Kaddish is being said does it have to be covered. Once we get to the 7th aliyah and they're saying Kaddish, then not only is Geliladad, is it wrapped, it's also covered. Das mistalek min hakriyah. Because why? Because literally at that point you're not reading anymore. You're removing yourself from the reading. Vehu hadin kol makom sheyesh zeman arok kigon shemezamerin lehatan o shema'arichin b'mi sheberach ach mechasin az mechasin besudar. And certainly at any time where there is a long interruption, there's a long amount of time. What does that mean? For example, they're singing for a hatan, or the Mishe Berach is a long Mishe Berach. Then aside for Gelilah, now we're talking according to the Ashkenazim. Aside for Gelilah, we also cover the Sefer Torah. Ben gavra legavra v'hatam she'en lehanicha petucha. What's the reason we don't generally leave the Sefer Torah open, or we don't, or we're careful to close it? She'en kavod Torah sheteh petucha v'tamtin ad shetavo acher. It's not kavod Torah that the Sefer Torah should remain open until the next person comes up. Therefore, either it is rolled, or according to the Sfaradim, at the very least, it is covered. The ketav, the writing, is covered with a cover. Bezrat Hashem Rabotai, tomorrow we will continue with Seif Vav in the Shulchan Aruch.